Good afternoon and welcome to 365 Days of Amazing Stories with Theo Mayer. Here we are on day 178. I'm continuing stories from 1001 Arabian Nights. Now, we'd heard the story of Zubaydah, who'd been summoned by Harun al-Rashid to come into his presence, and they were to tell the story, their stories. Zubaydah told hers, and now it was Amina who must tell her story. She was the one that had the marks upon her neck that they were able to see, all the men were able to see at one point in time during the night. And so Amina came forth and she bowed before the Caliph Harun al-Rashid, and she began, "O Commander of the Faithful, this is my story." And so she began to tell it. And as it was told, she had a very wealthy father who, when he had died, had left her a great sum of money. And soon after, she ended up marrying supposedly the most wealthy man in Baghdad. And when she had married this man, they had a very beautiful life for only about a year before he died. And of course, she then inherited a great sum of money from him. The amount was, well, it was calculated in dinars, some gold coin. And she had 90,000 gold dinars at the time that he died. This allowed her to live in great affluence, and she was known throughout the city as this woman of wealth. She had beautiful clothing, beautiful ornaments, and she invested her money in beautiful things and living a good life. And this went on for quite some time. She was content just to be in her own place, in her own space, until one day there was a knock upon the door. And when Amina went to answer it, there in front of her was this old woman. And old she indeed was, with gray matted hair and gray skin that was somewhat freckled. Wrinkles were all over her face, her skin hanging down on the sides of her cheeks, creating like jowls. Her skin did not look good. It was old skin, that wrinkly kind of skin that you see on older people. Thin it was indeed. And her eyes had that misty, clouded over look, that somewhat bleary look that comes, in fact, with old age. Well, Amina wondered as she looked upon this old woman what was next, but she asked, "Hi, hello, how can I help you?" And the old woman said, "Oh, my lady, I must tell you that my daughter, she's getting married this very day, presented and married. And we are new to this town and do not know anyone. But you are well known throughout this entire land, throughout this entire city. And I'm asking you, please, if you would come and bless us with your presence, because I know if you came, then so many other people would come as well, especially so many other women, to bless my daughter on this day of her coming out and of her marriage." Well, the woman went on, reciting verses and saying how if I were to come, it would change everything. And so I said, let it be Almighty's will, I will come. The old woman said, I will send somebody to fetch you this evening. Please be ready. Off the old woman went, and Amina prepared herself and her garments. Before the old woman had left, she told the old woman that her daughter would get married in no other clothing and with no other ornaments on than those that she would bring for her. And so she prepared not only for herself, but for this young woman who was getting married. All was set, all was ready, and eventually there was a knock upon her door, and she was led away with her maidservants following. Now, they went through parts of the city that Amina did not find familiar, and eventually turned up into an alley. This alley had been recently washed of its dust, and they went down this alley until they came to a doorway. And the doorway was shrouded with a black shroud that had gold filigree all over it. It was beautiful to behold. There they stopped. And the old woman who was with them at that point had led the group from Amina's home to this doorway, knocked upon it. The door opened. They came into a hallway. There were beautiful silk carpets and beautiful tapestries along the wall. But what truly caught Amina's eyes was the line of candles on either side of a passageway, which led up into a courtyard. She made her way up in between these candles. And when she arrived there, from behind a curtain, a beautiful young woman came forth, the daughter of the old woman. She welcomed Amina, and then she told Amina something that she had not expected to hear. Amina had surrendered to whatever was going to happen this night, but she had no idea the words that she was going to hear. She had no idea this was going to happen next. The young woman said, "My lady, I have a brother, far more beautiful and charming than myself, who has from afar loved you and admired you for a very long time. He has seen you at certain festivities, weddings, and has always wished to tie the knot with you." The young woman went on about his virtues and how beautiful a young man he was. And after some time, Amina said, "So be it. So be it." When she had said this, the young woman clapped her hands twice. And from another doorway came a young man that Amina immediately found both handsome and beautiful. Charming he was, young. He was in that time of life when a young man is full of all those youthful qualities that we wish we could carry with us throughout our entire life. He came over and he sat down next to Amina. And Amina took in his incredible beauty with her eyes. They sat sharing some words with each other. And in a short amount of time, that young woman clapped her hands again, and out came some priests to marry them. Now they'd been talking, and some of the things they'd been talking about is what their vows to each other would be. And the one thing this young man asked of Amina is that she would not ever talk to another man or show herself to another man. Well, she agreed to this, and she had to give a solemn oath that she would live by this rule that her soon-to-be husband was imposing upon her. But she was impatient for the night to get on and for them to have their evening, their first evening together. And so the priest came out, the 4 priests came out, and they married them. And there was some brief bit of celebrating before the couple retired to their room. Amina had one of the most beautiful nights that she had ever had. And this love affair went on for an entire year. Well, not a year. For an entire month, things were very, very beautiful. About this end of a month, the old woman, who was this young man's mother, came and said, "Let us go shopping for some silks." And Amina was like, I don't really need anything. But the old woman insisted, and so Amina agreed. And off they went down to the marketplace. And standing in front of one of the first markets they came to was a young, tall, slender man. And handsome as well. And the old woman wished to go into her shop and said, he has some of the best silks of anyone. And so in they went. And the old woman said, "Ask him to show you his wares." And Amina said, "I cannot. I am not to talk to another man." So the old woman said, "Please show us what you have to sell." And the young man came out and showed them different swaths of silk, a number of which Amina was quite taken by. And she turned to the old woman and said, "Well, ask the price." And they had picked out, I guess, 3 fabrics to take home with them. And the young man said, "I will not sell these. There is no price, there's no money that is necessary." And the old woman said, "Well, then what is the cost?" "Well, the cost is but that I may kiss the cheek of this beautiful young woman before me." The old woman turned to Amina and said, "There's no money that you need to exchange. Just let him kiss you." And Amina said, "I cannot do that." It would mean that she would have to unveil herself in order for this young man to kiss her on the cheek. Well, the old woman implored Amina, "Please, just take your veil off and it will be done in a moment. He'll kiss you and all will be well." The old woman convinced Amina to do so, and she unveiled her face. The young man came up to her, and instead of kissing her on the cheek, he bit her. And he bit her so hard that he bit off a piece of her cheek. Amina fell fainting to the ground. And by the time she came to, that shop owner had fled, locking the store behind him. And the old woman said, get up quickly before this becomes public." And we will leave the story there and find out what happens next.